November 19, 1493. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Combat Sports Media YouTube channel. This is your boy Sev, and today we're going to talk about, break down, and give out a prediction for the upcoming Oscar de la Hoya versus Vitor Belfort boxing exhibition match. But before I go any further, we're here in San Juan, Puerto Rico on this beautiful, beautiful day that God has blessed us with. And we're going to talk a little bit about him, especially considering the fact that the 4th of July just passed, and I figure I make a deleted 4th of July episode for the Combat Sports Media YouTube channel. So here it goes. November 19th, 1493 is when Christobal officially came to what is called Puerto Rico today, but at the time it was called Borinquen. And Borinquen was populated by the Taino people. Technically, it was not his first time here on the island. As I said and went over in a previous video, that on his first time visiting the island, it was maybe about a year before that or so, 6 months or a year before, and a young Juan Ponce de Leon was accompanying Cristobal Colon as a volunteer, and they stopped by Borinquen real quick, and then they made their way to what is now called Dominican Republic. And you know, they did whatever they did at the Dominican Republic. But the first official time he came here, it was on his second voyage. Alright, he was on his second voyage. Sorry for the shitty camera work, my bad. So, November 19th, 1493, on his second voyage is when he officially came to the island and I guess tried to, or started to, the colonization process. Now, we all know who's really responsible for colonizing Puerto Rico. That's Ponce de Leon himself, who, again, was a kid volunteer on Chris's first voyage to the New World. Now, I don't know if he came with Chris on his second voyage to the New World, which is the first official time that Chris came to Puerto Rico and tried to establish some things. Now, the crazy thing is, at the time, the Spanish, see, the reason why the Spanish did the most out of any other European nation or country as far as exploration and colonization is concerned at the time, was because at the time they were clearly ahead of everybody else as far as geography was concerned. Now, the Spanish or the Europe were clearly not the first ones to run into the New World. White people have been interacting with the New World and have been to the New World many, many times before Christopher Columbus was even born. However, it was mostly the Vikings and maybe the Dutch before him. But the problem is, the Vikings did not keep records. They didn't give a shit about keeping records. So, as much as they did, it kind of didn't count because they never kept records. The Spanish kept records of everything they did and everything that they learned. Much like advanced ancient civilizations like the Greeks, the Armenians, the Persians, the Spanish were kind of like them in the sense that these guys loved keeping records, and they were really hell-bent on enriching their knowledge. For those of you that don't know, Spain at one point in time, or actually around this time, I think, actually had the most amount of libraries in all of Europe. If I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere around 300 to 500 libraries in Spain at the time. So these guys kept and stored information, which is what gave them the heads up against all the other nations when it came to this exploring shit. They were well ahead of all the other Europeans at the time as far as geography is concerned. And also, they were very well geographically located to travel to and from the Caribbean, especially Puerto Rico. Because when you leave Spain, up until today, it's no different today. By the way, this is a little mural of, I guess, him interacting with the natives of Borinquen when he first came here officially on his second voyage on November of 1493. So, oh shit, what was I saying? See, this is why you can't cut yourself off, because then this happens. But anyway, it's all good. So, yeah, okay, I remember. So, until today, there's a natural current that takes you from Spain to the Caribbean, specifically to this area, specifically to Puerto Rico, which was that's why Puerto Rico was strategically such an important place for the Spaniards, because it was the current naturally takes you to Puerto Rico from Spain, and it's also a great pit stop that they needed in the New World. So if they were going to go somewhere in South America, rob, steal, and pillage, and bring it back to Spain, they had to stop somewhere and regroup and refuel before they made their way back to Spain. And so Puerto Rico was perfect for that. It was the perfect port for that. And that's what Puerto Rico is translated to great port. Well, it certainly was great for the Spanish, for that reason. And before I forget, Christopher Colon, or Christobal Colon, he renamed this city when he got here in 1493. I mean, not the city, this island. He renamed the island San Juan Bautista, after Saint John the Baptist, which is why the city is called San Juan. It was the original name of the island that Christopher Columbus named. Obviously, that wasn't the real name of the island when he came. That's what he named it. He named it after Saint John the Baptist, and that's how we get the city of San Juan. That's where it comes from. So it's in the honor of Saint John the Baptist. So, back to my original point, Puerto Rico was such an important place strategically for the Spanish because it was the perfect pit stop every time they were going back and forth to Spain. Because what they were doing was they were colonizing everything, and they were also robbing, pillaging, raping, and doing whatever to the rest of the Caribbean and South America, and bringing all the wealth back to Spain, specifically gold. And you know, it's a long ride from the Caribbean or to the Americas back to Spain, so they needed a pit stop. Puerto Rico was the perfect pit stop. That's the lesson of this video. Puerto Rico was the perfect pit stop, and that's why they did everything in their power, not only to establish it and colonize it, but to hold on to it for dear life. They finally lost the island to the US in the late 1800s. So They literally shed a lot of blood to hold on to this island for Spain, because they needed this place to continue robbing the rest of the world. You know, you can't just rob the shit out of the Caribbean and South America and just go to Spain. You need a place to stop. So the amount of wealth that has gone through this island of Borinquen or Puerto Rico is just unreal. Pretty much all of Spain's wealth has gone through this island, or much of it. Maybe not all of it, but much of it. A lot of Spain's wealth of today has passed through this island. The Spanish knew what they were doing from the jump. There was very little surprise to them. They knew what they were doing from the first day. Again, these people were well ahead of the other European countries and nations at the time when it came to geography. They planned everything out very well. And I'm not saying these conquistadors were morally on point all the time, but you can't deny the balls and their greatness and their will. Fucking crazy. All of these motherfuckers, well, not all of them, but most of them could have lived very comfortable lives back in Europe doing jack shit. And they all decided to risk their lives in the name of, I don't know, maybe ego, or in the name of accomplishing great things, or in the name of, you know, being remembered forever. And the last thing I will say about Christopher Columbus before I go on to the boxing is, in the beginning, nobody wanted to sponsor this motherfucker. They thought it was a bad idea, a bad investment. He got turned down by pretty much every royal family he approached. However, the story goes that he was so broke at the time because he wasted all his money pretty much trying to, and he exhausted all his, you know, he asked pretty much all the royal families that he could if they could finance him. They all turned him down, every single one of them. However, since he was so poor, he was forced to stay with some priest or at some church or something. The information is out there, but I just don't remember it. So he was so broke and homeless that him and his son were just staying at some church with some priest. And that priest happened to be the personal priest, or whatever you call it, to Queen Isabella, I believe. Or the king, I forgot which one. But, you know, Catholics have this weird ass stupid tradition where you go into like this closet or something, and on the other side of it there's another human being called a priest or some shit, and you just tell him all your sins and all your secrets and all that shit, right? And supposedly he's like a middleman between you and God. I know that makes absolutely no sense, but that's what it is. Well, the priest that he was staying with was, I believe, Queen Isabella's personal priest. So he knew all her darkest secrets. And so he basically blackmailed the Spain's royal family. And that's how he got financed originally to come to the so-called New World. That's how he fucking did it. You guys are welcome. You probably didn't know that. And now you do. So let's talk about some boxing. Now, Oscar De La Hoya, his last fight was back in December of 2008, I believe, against Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao was coming up from 135 to 147 pounds, and at the time De La Hoya was coming down from 154, and he had fought as high as 160, and he hadn't fought as a welterweight in nearly 8 years. and we all know what happened. It was a one-sided beating. It lasted about 8 or 9 rounds. De La Hoya quit on the stool and never fought again. However, here we are about 12 years later, and he is set to fight against another southpaw. But this southpaw is twice as big as Manny Pacquiao, and he's a lot more powerful than Manny Pacquiao. And Vitor Belfort is his name. Vitor Belfort, for those of you that don't know, is an MMA legend, a future UFC Hall of Famer, former UFC champion. The lightest that he fought was 185, and his best punch is that left hand. As we all remember, De La Hoya kept getting hit over and over and over and over again, and his last fight against Manny Pacquiao with the left hand from the southpaw stance, which Vitor Belfort is as well. And that just so happens to be his best punch, ironically. Except for this time, De La Hoya can't afford to get hit with the left hand over and over and over again like he did last time against Pacquiao, because Vitor Belfort might knock him out with just one. De La Hoya is naturally much bigger than Pacquiao, but this is the opposite in this fight. He's much smaller. He's the smaller man in this fight. And I heard a recent interview with De La Hoya talking about how he's going to fight. He's saying that he's going to bulk up. He's probably going to come in around 170 something, maybe 180. And he's thinking about walking Vitor Belfort down. I don't know about that. I'm not saying he can't do it or it's not smart, but I don't know. And Vitor Belfort, he's recently got released from the UFC. He was traditionally known to have fast hands, especially when he was younger. And again, that powerful fucking left hand, he was known for it in the UFC as well. And he's knocked out and hurt a lot of guys with it in the UFC. So he could definitely do it to De La Hoya without a doubt. However, when it comes to making a prediction, I have to go with De La Hoya because he's the former professional boxer, he's the former Olympic gold medalist, and he's the former multi-time, multi-weight boxing world champion. So just off of pedigree, I'm going with Oscar. Extremely talented fighter, always. He's up there in age now. He probably hasn't been living the best and cleanest lifestyle, but Vitor Belfort is up there in age as well. However, he's probably been living a little better than Oscar has, since he just recently left the UFC. He's been active this whole time. Oscar's been retired for 12 years. So I actually expect this to be competitive in some ways and in some spots. I actually don't expect a knockout. I mean, if a knockout does happen, I think it's Vitor catching Oscar with the left hand and cleaning him out. Other than that, I expect Oscar to outpoint him, and it's an exhibition, so we probably won't get an official scorecard or anything like that, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. I think Oscar will clearly outpoint him at the end when it's all said and done, but I do expect a few competitive and rocky moments. There you have it, folks. Thank you for tuning in. The channel is growing, and I have you guys to thank for that. Please continue to check back. I will continue to pump out more videos. We got a lot of great things coming with history and fighting. So check back with me soon. Y'all have a good one, and God bless. Peace.